This is the Cafe Racer Podcast, episode 73 for April 18th, 2015. I'm Steven.
And I'm Crash.
That was screw up free, actually.
Yeah, that was pretty good. You and Joe got a good one in the other day too.
It was until I went and listened to it on the actual recording because I said episode 17 instead of 72.
Yeah.
And I
actually didn't notice it.
Right. But and then I'm realizing I didn't see what date it was. So as I'm talking, I'm clicking on the upper right hand corner of the computer to see. Because I almost said this is the Cafe Racer Podcast for Saturday at 4:51. But anyway, and I'm kind of tired, so of course that's when I make mistakes. So how are you?
Not bad. Could be better, could be worse.
Right.
I don't know if you saw. I think I posted it on Facebook. I put a big old dent in the tank of the bike the other day.
I saw that, but I didn't really understand what you did, and I was going to call you about that.
Sure.
What happened?
So I have a wheel chock in the back of my truck. Roll the bike up into the truck, into the chock. I can let the bike go and strap it down and not need, somebody holding it or whatever. So I had been transporting the bike from a friend's house back to my house and went to get it out of my truck, pulled it out of the chock, and the weight shifted away from me. I was standing on the left-hand side of the bike. The weight shifted away from me. And I just didn't have, I could have stopped it. You know what I mean? Like I could have caught it, but it got kind of too far too fast. And I knew that it would hurt me to try to stop it. And I still might not. And so I just kind of let it go down. And so the tank landed on the very edge of my truck bed. And that made that 6-inch long dent
on the edge of the pickup truck rail.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I lifted it up and then rolled it out of the truck, and I actually haven't ridden it since because I've been all over the place and using my truck a lot. But
yeah, it's a drag, and I always feel like loading bikes in the back of trucks is squirrely to begin with.
Oh yeah, definitely.
People are like, oh no, it's easy. You just do this, and then I've watched other people do it, and it falls out or falls over, and take a bike anywhere. I like using a trailer. Even then, a couple times I've got on the trailer and put my foot down on a wet leaf, and felt like I almost went over. But I was smart because I pressure cleaned my trailer. Finally, it was getting such a layer of algae goo on it that it got slippery as hell. So I pressure cleaned it and got all that off of there. So how bad? I mean, I saw the dent in the pictures. Are you just going to replace the tank or try to have it fixed?
I'm not sure. At the moment, I'm not really doing anything to it. I'm just going to leave it. To replace the tank would be $800.
Oh, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, it would come painted, but yeah, it would be $800 for a new tank.
Oh, that's like Moto Guzzi money for a tank right there too.
Yeah. So, and I mean, the thing is, that's just the sheet metal part of the tank. It doesn't come with the pump or anything. So I'd have to pull the plate that has the pump and all that stuff off the old tank and put it on the new tank. It's really $800 for
a tank?
What's that?
You looked on eBay?
No, not yet. I haven't really.
It's funny because I haven't
done anything.
I buy parts for the 10A when I find them, just because I think they're going to be harder to find as the bike gets older. And I found a tank. That tank's plastic on the 10A, and I found a tank on eBay for like $35. Well, I ended up getting it, and not realizing when I didn't really read the ad pretty well, but there's a small leak in the bottom of it, but it can be fixed. That because of the way that tank's designed, it's easy to use a plastic welder and fix it. So I just wrapped, it looks great. It's in good condition. I wrapped it up and put it in the garage in the app. And that'll just be, if I need another part someday or if something happens, I'll have a tank. But I don't know. Look on there and see if you find anything for the Bonnie. Maybe you
yeah.
will. So speaking of wrecked stuff, I'd like you to indulge me for a rant here for a minute.
Sure.
All right. So you know about this because I told you, but I didn't post any of this like online anywhere. But I have a 2011 Dodge Ram pickup truck with a 5.7 liter Hemi in it. And I bought it new in 11, and I do a lot of driving. It's got 140,000 miles on it, but I take care of the truck. I'm pretty meticulous about the maintenance on it and what goes in it. Well, about 3 weeks ago, coming home from work, coming off the Florida Turnpike, excuse me, the truck just quit running. I got to check engine light, and it just stopped. So I coasted to a stop, got on the phone, started making a couple phone calls. I called my insurance company because I have towing with the insurance and told them, look, I'm going to need a tow.
Mm-hmm.
I started like running down the options in my head, what I'm going to do. So I have a really good friend of mine who's had a mechanic place, auto mechanic business for years. Him and his brother run a place in Fort Lauderdale. And I'm going to plug him because he's such a good friend of mine, but it's G&S Performance in Fort Lauderdale. And these guys, they owned a gas station for years and had service in the gas station, 3 bays, and they're really well liked. They have really great ratings. And I called him and he's like, look, just have it towed down here. I'm like, man, that's going to be a really expensive job because it's an hour drive down south. I'm just going to have it towed to a local place. I don't know. It might just be a sensor or something that went bad. So have it towed to the local place around the corner from me. And they called me the next day and we got bad news. I'm like, what's the matter? And he's like, well, we thought what it was. The error code we're getting is a sensor that goes bad that records whether or not your cam for your timing belt's turning. And the timing belt's turning the cam. And they said that's, that we replaced that and it's not it. And we also looked through the hole where that goes in and it's not turning at all. So your timing belt's broken. I'm like, great. And I start doing a little bit of research on it. I noticed that there was a recall on the same motor in the Challengers and the Chargers from 06 to 2012. And mine's a 2011. So I'm hoping this isn't it. And I talked to my buddy, and my buddy said, these things drop valve seats really bad too because they're pressed metal powdered for the valve seats. So this is the rant part now. So the guy calls me the next day and he goes, yeah, we got the cover off, timing chain, not a belt, but the chain is broken. And he said, but there's more news. He said, there's something in the motor not turning as well. So I'm figuring it's the valve train for sure. I called Dodge up and talked to the service manager of the local Dodge. And the guy's like, call the national customer service number. Tell them what happened. Tell them about the recall. Let's see what they can do. So I call them up. They give me a case number, and they're real positive about it. Well, the car has to go back to Dodge, though, before we can do anything. They have to do their assessment of it and their diagnosis and get back to us on this case number. And so I call this guy back, the manager from the Dodge place, and say, look, I'm going to have the car towed over to you. I'm like, what's the chances that they're going to cover this or even extend the warranty to it, being that there's 140,000 miles on it? And this guy really kind of gave me pie in the sky. Oh, yeah, they do it all the time. They'll probably pick up the parts for you, maybe some of the labor. They want to make you a happy customer, blah, 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 blah. So meanwhile, I'm like this, hook, line, and sinker.
Mm-hmm.
So I go back over to the local place. I pay that guy $350 for the work he did to get the timing chain cover off, his labor. Left it in the car, so all the parts. Spend another $100 to have it towed to Dodge. They call me up a day later and said, we need you to authorize a leak down test. And I was like, oh, really? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, you just can't tell by looking, through a spark plug hole that there's a problem. And he's like, no, we got to do it. All right. So that was $275 for them to tell me what I already knew, And then they said, Dodge isn't going to cover any of it. I said, why? He goes, well, the miles are too high. I said, I told them what the miles were, and I mentioned that to you. And he goes, yeah, I know. But good news, I've already started ordering the parts for you. I'm like, hold on a second. I'm not authorizing you to fix it. How much are the parts? And he goes, well, you're up to about $4,000 right now. I'm like, what? $4,000? He goes, yeah, you have to have 2 completely new heads. Why? So, make a long story short, I spent another couple $100, had it towed down to my buddy's place, and 6 bent valves, some other damage with the lifters. There was some damaged lifters, and while he was in there, he went ahead and replaced water pump and the oil pump, and there was some. It's a roller lifter with cam, so we replaced all of it. There was some marks on it, some damage, and the heads didn't have to be replaced. They just had to be sent out, and they were redone, and everything was fixed on them. And so that bill from him was very reasonable. It was less than what Dodge was going to charge me for parts for the whole entire job. So the rant, and what I'm going to say is, if you have a Hemi Dodge truck between 06 and 2012, and you hear anything that sounds like maybe a tensioner going bad, what ultimately happened was that caused the failure of the timing belt, which locked up the rest of everything else, was there's a plastic tensioner that's part of the system in the timing chain. I keep saying belt, but it's a chain. And there's a guide on the other side of it. And the guide's made out of plastic, and that's what's failed. And that's what failed in the recall in the Challengers and Chargers. And they recalled 52,000 of those motors in the Challengers and Chargers. The builds are the same. The identical motor that's in every other vehicle that they used for that year. The replacement part that went in there for the timing belt, hey, John just joined in there. All right, cool, John, we see you. There's the replacement parts are made out of a different type of material, and it's got some backing on it that's metallic. So if you have that vehicle with that motor in it, or any Dodge product with a 5.7 liter Hemi with MDS, which is the system that shuts down to 4 cylinders, go get it looked at. And you're probably going to be looking for a noise that sounds like a bearing failing in a tensioner, like a belt tensioner, because that's what I was hearing on mine, and we couldn't track it down. We listened to every one of the pulleys, and that's really what was going on. But also, if it is a truck and it's not a Challenger and a Charger, get on the National Highway and Transportation website. I'll post a link in the show notes, and file a complaint. And if you have had engine failure and you had to have something rebuilt because of that, also file a complaint. If enough people do, they may extend the recall into the trucks. Okay, end rant. I'm done. That was a lot of money I spent. So,
yeah. While you were ranting, I was listening, but I was also looking on eBay for a tank.
You find anything?
An A tank. It's purple, so obviously that's going to have to change. But I found a tank that is currently on auction, and it's around $300 now.
That's not bad.
No. Yeah. If I could get it for that much, then I'd probably do it. I still have to get it painted, but
the other bad news that we got this week, which I curled up in a little ball and started crying like a little girl, was EBR filed for protection from their creditors. Did you see that? Yeah. So I guess, that brought up a lot of questions, and I read a lot of financial articles about it. And I guess the situation was that they had with Hero wasn't like a direct funding situation where it was just cash without some strings attached to it. And I more than likely they had some financial benchmarks they had to meet that they didn't. And one of the articles I read said they were $20 million in debt. So they must have turned a corner around the quarter and just weren't going to secure the funding with Hero, is what it looked like to me.
Right.
Which is really sad, because I thought, they were heading in the right direction with a really innovative product and things were going good for them. And now being in receivership, I don't really know a lot about how this works. And I was going to ask you if you maybe read or something on it or knew it, but apparently the companies can be bid upon. So
I don't know.
If somebody bids upon it, do they bid on the debt as well, or is that debt wiped clean?
Yeah, that's a good question.
It's $20 million. I don't think you're going to find a lot of people that are going to, buy a company that's in the hole that far. You never know. I don't know. But I'm really, really saddened and bummed out to hear that, because I was really rooting for them. And I still am. I hope that something happens. But, it's an American company with an American-made motorcycle, and it was phenomenal. and I was really looking forward to eventually getting one, but I just don't think they sold enough of them. Obviously, being in debt for $20 million, or maybe Eric spent a lot of his own company money to get them to where they are right now before expecting to get an inject of cash from Hero, and that never happened. But that's just
right.
It's a drag. It really is. I don't know what. Yeah. John made a comment on here. He said, "I bet that Hero saw Eric spending money like crazy and got scared and backed out." Yeah, it could be. I mean, that's what I saw, is that they were spending a lot of money. That the race team, they were going to revamp it and do World Superbike again and doing all the shows. But I think that's stuff that they had to do, and I just can't imagine that there wouldn't have been some clause in the contract. I don't know. It's a disappointment for the industry, for me, but for the industry too. I really wanted Hero to survive. Maybe it'll be like Indian, where they go away for a little while, or not Hero, but EBR, and then somebody comes back. The other issue is now too that I don't know if EBR will still have some sort of connection to Hero, but is Hero now going to continue to open up the brand in the U.S. and what the reception is going to be like now without EBR there? We'll see. It remains to be seen. What do you think?
I don't know. I'd be interested to see, if Hero comes out with some stuff here, but who knows? Like, it seems like everything's up in the air now.
Yeah, I don't know. And now, what happens to the bikes that are in the dealerships?
Right.
What happens to the bikes that were purchased? The dealer's going to commit to continue to service them. I'm sure they're going to have some parts on hand, but it's not like those bikes have interchangeable parts with any other brand. It's pretty proprietary. John just asked a kind of question that you think if the ADV bike would have come out first, would it have been better sales wise? That's a good question. I don't really know. I don't know the answer to that. From talking to them about the adventure bike, there was a lot of technology that was going into that bike, and they were trying to bring it in at a certain price point. Maybe if they would have come in with something that was a little bit more basic and then built off of that, that might have been a better idea. I personally think they should have started with the Sport Tour and the race bike. But see, for them, the naked bike, in my opinion, was an easy thing to do because they just had to change the front end of it, is all it was. The bikes were identical. It was just taking that full fairing off and putting that smaller little light module in there. Starting ground up with an adventure bike, if it would have been something in that sport adventure area like the Multistrada, maybe the sales would have been better. Maybe they needed to come out with more than one or two bikes to start, and maybe had 3 or 4 so that they hit more market segment across the board. I don't know. Usually, I think it has a lot to do with an infusion of cash that keeps the company running for a while. And John made a comment about racing too, that they started racing right off the bat. Racing's expensive. And I don't know where that came from either, that money, if that was corporate money that they had used out of the coffers, or if that was something from a race account that they were using. It's hard to say, but unfortunately, like I said, it's a tough loss for the industry. And I guess I'm just going to have to get over it and stop crying about it. So, yeah. The other thing there was, Honda has a concept bike that I saw. Did you see this thing?
No.
The Honda Bulldog.
I'm going to look it up right now.
Right. It's kind of like in my opinion, I'm looking at a picture of it, and it looks like a bigger version of a Ruckus that.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know. I can't really get used to the styling on this thing right now, and I can't really figure out. I can't place myself on it and figure out how I would ride it, because it looks like the bike's low to the ground. It might just be an illusion because the tank's large.
Yeah.
See the distance from the top of the filler to the seat?
Yeah, it's got a super tall tank.
Yeah. So it just seems like the bike's going to you're going to sit low.
But it's a 400 too. So it's not a big bike, I'm sure, by any means. It's a little 400cc motor in it.
What's the weight on it? Does it say? I'm trying to find some specs on here. You know, if anyone's going to take something like this and actually bring it to market, it'll be Honda, because, you know, most of the concept bikes that they've had out have come out. It's just kind of weird looking to me. I don't know. I think they're in the right direction, you know, with some sort of a utility UJM.
Mm-hmm. It's goofy looking.
Right. The only other thing too is the price has got to be in the right area for them. This bike can't come in at like some ridiculous number, you know. I don't know. They've been doing this stuff, and every concept bike that they've had up until this, were like, I'd stick my finger in my throat, want to throw up. The DN01 that they came out with, and then that MNN4, that ridiculously goofing thing. Even some of the what's that thing called? The CTX 1300.
Dude, this thing, I just noticed this thing's on 15-inch wheels. It's going to be tiny, just like the Grom, only, well, it's like a bigger Grom.
It's I said, it's a ruckus, man. It's
yeah.
Maybe it'll come out with a bigger motor, though. You know, I don't know. I know the guys from the Pace kind of liked it. They were talking about it.
It's quirky for sure, and I'm not saying I don't like it. I just don't know what to make of it.
It won't be in my garage. That's what I'll make of it. I'm gonna have fried dog for dinner tonight. Hear that?
Yeah, I do, but it's not that bad.
Yeah, no, it just aggravates the crap out of me because I can't stand a barking dog. But anyway, the other thing too is BMW made a couple announcements that were interesting. One is they're definitely, and I tried to talk about this on the last episode, but we had some serious technical difficulties. Hold on one sec, Chris. Can you talk for a second? Let me just
sure.
Kill some animals here.
All right. So while Steve goes and kills animals, let's see, what can I talk about that's going on in my world or in the motorcycle industry? Well, as Steve was quick to point out last week, I've been rather busy with things. John just mentioned that the Honda Bulldog seems more viable than the Starship Cruiser Bat bike they came out with. Yeah, definitely. It's a very utilitarian looking motorcycle, and if you haven't had a chance to go look at it, it's got dual headlights. It's got like a front luggage rack that sits above the headlights, and apparently this giant tank that I'm looking at is actually storage compartment as well. It's not just the tank, but I mean it's tall. Like it's it makes the tank look positively enormous.
You might as well forget putting a tank bag on there.
Yeah, like if you put a tank bag on there, it looks like it would sit up in front of your face. Like you wouldn't be able to see over it.
Right. Because look at the top of the tank to the, well.
I mean, you'd probably be able to put a tank bag on it. It's a bit of an exaggeration, but
junction, still. It's not really that super high, but I didn't realize it was on 15-inch wheels. It's just really goofy looking. It looks like a parallel twin. It's probably the CB500 motor, right?
I don't know. It's a 400cc motor, so it's probably really similar.
You know, and there's that kind of high scrambler tailpipe, but I don't know. So getting back to the BMW announcement, they're going to be at AIM, and that's to me that's a big signal that AIM's in the right direction and going to kind of crush IMS. Now we're just waiting to hear about Honda. And then the other announcement that they came out with the other day was they're going to have a lower priced R9T.
I did see that.
Right. I'm going to try to find the pricing for it. And I've been digging through and seeing if there's what the models are they're going to come out. But I posted one of the pictures of the bike on our page. And I don't know if that's a concept or a Photoshop bike or not, if that's really the real thing. It kind of, some of the parts look like they were offsides a little bit, but you know, that could be, that's really what that bike needed, was a lower price point. At 16.9 or whatever it came out with, that to me, it was too high. If they get that bike in around, you know, I would say in the $11,000 price range for BMW being a premium brand, that would be a good price. What do you think?
Yeah.
Looking at it.
Sorry, I got a little distracted. The R9T concept looks pretty cool. And I agree with you that, you know, they need to come down on that price. Like 14.5, I think is what it is right now. Or something like that.
Without any of the stuff
You
added.
know? Like, ouch. It's, right. I mean, it's got more motor than, you know, than like a Bonneville or whatever, but still, that's expensive.
Well, there's all, you know, the thing with BMW too is you when you're buying a bike like that, you're going to be spending more money all the way around.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the cost of like a Ducati, it's much higher. So I don't know. I think if the lower price one comes out, I think it'll be a big seller. Now, is it gonna appeal to that kind of the hipster market that went after the Ducati Scrambler, or more people are going to use it as a general transportation bike? I think you'll probably see more people using that particular bike as a general transportation bike, like the Moto Guzzi, you know, the Stone or the Classic. You know, and I know that everyone kind of pans that bike for the horsepower or the lack of,
right,
on the Guzzi, but you know, it's the price is a lot less for one, and some people just like the styling. They don't really care about having the horsepower, and they like the dependability of it. And you know, frankly, Guzzi's cost of ownership is not the same as a Japanese bike, but it's a lot less than Ducati or BMW. The shop price I find to be more in line with other dealers, and the prices for the parts aren't that expensive. For instance, on the Stelvio, a heated grip kit ready to go. It's plug and play. It automatically picks it up. It's like $100 and something bucks. It's not very expensive at all. Where I've heard some of the other brands were $300 and $400, but I don't know. We'll see. I kind of like that. I like the direction BMW is going with that bike, that they're offering some additional styles for it. I think it's kind of cool. And yeah, I liked it when I saw it in the dealership. I just didn't like the price. I thought it was overpriced. 15, like you said, 15,000. That's with ABS, but that's, what was the price for the Honda CB1000? That was 11,000 with ABS, right?
I think so. Yeah.
There's a huge difference. That's a lot more bike, you know. This, and then the other thing as well is they kind of pushed this thing as being this, you know, create your own look, modular. We'll make it look like a, you know, a chop bike and things like that. But a lot of those parts aren't available in the United States. So
right.
Off-road only. So we'll see if that comes to fruition with them. I'm looking to see, I don't see anything about lower prices on here. I'm just trying to pick something up and see. So the other thing is we got some feedback too on the episode last show, which was only a couple weeks ago, with Joe Pop. And Joe, now I just got to say, Joe's he's a great guy. I've talked to him for quite some time off the air, and I really come to like the guy, and really can't wait to see what happens. Hopefully that thing will go someplace, the show. Anyway, so Paul wrote into us and he said, Steve, it's funny that you started your recent podcast with Joe Pop, saying that you thought his interview was probably the best the Pace has. For me, it was a 30-second podcast. I like motorcycles and I like traveling on motorcycles. I've toured the Japanese Alps on a Honda, destroyed a Ducati in Italy, and crossed the Himalaya on an Enfield. However, the whole motorcycle as a lifestyle thing leaves me cold. Something I dislike about riding in the States is the expectation that I wave to all the riders like there's some sort of mystical pro brotherhood we all belong to. Basically, I like what I like, and I don't see that our common interest in motorcycles implies common interest in other areas. I did look into Joe Pop's website, and while I admire what he's doing, that's not why I listen to motorcycle podcasts. The recent interview with Cali Protectives, now that was great, exactly what I'm looking for. I haven't heard of them before, and I am now trying to find out where I can see one. Not to be too negative, just my thoughts. However, I wonder if perhaps some of the declining ridership of motorcycles in the States is because of the whole lifestyle thing. This focus moves motorcycles from something people just do towards a lifestyle that defines who they are. The problem is that this also rules out motorcycles for anyone who doesn't want to adopt the do-rag lifestyle or the squid lifestyle or any other motorcycle lifestyle. I don't even want to think about the wheel nerds lifestyle. Link after that. Paul, somewhere in Hong Kong. For now, where people on motorcycles don't wave. So, Paul, hopefully, you know, you kind of understand where we're coming from on this. And yeah, you're right. It's really not about the lifestyle, but I can tell you that for people like most of us that have been riding a long time, it never started out about wanting to be in some sort of a lifestyle. And it certainly isn't for me. And I do agree with you about the common thread of motorcyclists. Just because you have that in common doesn't mean that you share other things in common. And I'm going to give you a really good example of that. And you guys hear me talk about Club Shell, where I hang out on Sunday mornings, which is a gas station. But the crowd that I've been hanging out with at Club Shell, that's been hanging out together for probably over 20 years, is the most mixed crowd of people you'll ever want to see. And typically you wouldn't see that type of interaction between those guys anywhere else. So at any given Sunday, sitting at the concrete picnic table at Club Shell, you'll have a guy there that fixes boat engines for a living, a guy that does fiberglass for a living, a guy that mows lawns, a guy that pressure cleans, a former banker, a Ferrari mechanic, airline pilots, me in the fire service. You have all these people from different socioeconomic classes, and they're all hanging out and they're talking about motorcycles. I imagine if you were with us, that would kind of be the same thing. You wouldn't turn your nose up at the crowd, but you'd find some interest that we all have had together, but basically because it was motorcycling. Not everyone there likes to tour. Not everyone there likes motorcycle racing. Some of those guys are drag racers. They go to the track with their bikes, but there is that kind of bond between us. You know, the waving thing, I don't think it's really expected. It's just kind of something that's kind of caught on now. And we do poke fun at the do-rag lifestyle, and, you know, any type of lifestyle that fits into a category, we'll make fun of a little bit. I mean, hell, people have probably labeled you and I as some sort of hip flavor of hipster that can't grow a beard. But
yeah,
you know, I don't live my life in the cafe racer lifestyle. You know, I'm not wearing a British bomber jacket, and you know, it's just, I like those bikes. I like that period of history a lot, but it doesn't really define who I am. And I have motorcycles in the garage that kind of span a lot of different types of a lot of those typical types of lifestyles. But first and foremost for me, I'm a motorcyclist. I travel, I commute on a motorcycle, and I tour. This guy's obviously a tourer. He's done some would be for me epic rides, you know. Paul, it seems to me like you kind of like to do it by yourself, and that's cool. And the one thing for us is, from a standpoint of the show, we're trying to deliver content that kind of spans a bunch of different things. So it's not all just reviews or not just people from the industry. And to have somebody that's doing something on a motorcycle that's interesting, that maybe to give people some programming that they can watch on TV, that's one of the reasons why we had Joe on here. So not every show is going to be like that, but we certainly will continue to have people like that on the show, and hopefully you'll stick around to listen. Chris?
Yes. I agree.
You're lost a little bit here.
No, you were going on a roll, and so I'm like, oh, I don't really have a lot to say other than, you know, because you're just pretty much making all the points I would make. I mean, all of my motorcycle traveling has been alone. You know, I don't ride in groups hardly ever. So, you know, and I know that you're the same way. You don't do a lot of group riding. You know, I had some friends when I lived in Virginia that we would ride relatively regularly. We'd meet up, you know, once a month or so. But, you know, I don't like big groups for sure.
No, and it was funny because there was there's something on Twitter called Moto Chat. If you do like a hashtag Moto Chat, they do this once a week, and they do that right after the Moto Chat. They do something on camping, which is kind of like a Twitter chat group, sort of. I participated in it 2 weeks ago for the first time and thought it was really interesting. But they were talking about like what's your travel bucket list, and I had said I'd want to go to Sturgis at least once, to be out there, just to experience the event and do the ride. And I don't mean, when I said that, I didn't mean doing it with other people. I meant just riding the area while I was up there. And somebody had chimed in and said, you know, I don't do group rides at all. I don't like them. And I said the same thing. I don't either, because you kind of you don't really know what the riding skill or the experience is of all these other people. And there's just a lot of people in the same proximity. And it's very, very difficult to gauge speed then, because some people on cruisers may want to ride at 40 miles an hour. And then there's some of the guys that are riding well over that. One of the things I do like is riding with the MSTA, because it's a smaller group of people that all have about the same skill level. And if there's somebody in the group that doesn't feel comfortable riding at the pace that they're at, they'll break off part of that group and let them ride slower. No pressure. And typically those guys aren't riding really close to each other. They're using comm systems. It's just a lot of fun. The rides are great. And to me, that's more of the type of group riding I like. We're talking maybe, between 6 and 10, maybe 15 people, not a lot.
Yeah, that's doable for me.
I don't think there's some people that really enjoy that. Some people like to get together on the weekends when they go on their riding club or their motorcycle club, and there's like 50 of them, and they're kind of riding 2x2, and riding at a reasonably steady pace. But that, for me, that's just not my gig at all. I don't like it. It's more of it's definitely a personal thing. And I'm glad Paul sent us a letter and shared his thoughts on there. I don't think he's wrong at all. I think it's just what he likes. That's fine, really. On to the next thing I had was there was another new bike that I saw. Hold on a second. Let me find it real quick here. Oh, yeah, speaking of MSTA, I got an email from Jim Park from down here about a movie that's coming out. Did you see that?
Is it
nothing to do with motorcycles, but it has to do with podcasters?
Yeah, the Tusk or whatever.
Tusk, yeah. So if you like, if you're another podcaster out there, you like the whole concept, go check out the trailer for the movie Tusk. I'll throw a note in there. I thought it was kind of funny. It's
this movie actually came out in 2014. I knew the name sounded familiar. I just looked it up now. It's a Kevin Smith movie.
Yeah, but it didn't come out at the theater, did it?
I'm not sure, but yeah, it came out in 2014.
Great. I never knew anything about it. I had no idea. No, I feel stupid. I was waiting for it to come out at the theater. I got to go online and see if I can find it. Jeez. Well,
it's got a 39% on Rotten Tomatoes, by the way.
Is that good or bad? I don't know.
It's out of 100. So.
Oh wow.
Pretty not so great.
Listen, if it's a Kevin Smith movie, I'm a fan, so I don't care.
Yeah.
No, I can't find it. There was another new bike I wanted to talk about. I did happen to see some photographs of some of the Guzzi V7s with that kit that they came out with, the Scrambler kit. You know what's really funny is now that more people are coming out with bikes that are sort of Scrambler-esque, with the high pipes and the kind of off-road tires, all the pundits around us are saying that whole thing is dead.
What, that Scramblers are dead?
Well, that the whole bobber, rat bike, Scrambler, cafe bike, that whole movement's dead, which I find really funny because it's been around for a really long time. It's just more people started to pay attention to it, I think.
Yeah.
I doubt that and especially with Ducati and BMW and Moto Guzzi coming out with versions of it, and you could make a case to say the Bulldog is a Scrambler.
Yeah.
It's got a high pipe, it's got off-road tires on it. It kind of looks like somebody threw an off-road light on it, but that's kind of where I think they're going with that as well. And there's really nothing wrong with that. I think it just kind of more of a utility type bike. Maybe it needs a different name. Maybe it needs to be called the more of like an all-purpose type motorcycle.
My kid just got up. I'll be right back. So your turn to talk.
But yeah, anyway, talking about some stuff we got coming up, and I got some really interesting news, and I got an invite from the guys with the Ace Cafe. So speaking of the death of the Cafe Racer, which isn't going to happen down here, Ace Cafe next week on Thursday is going to have a special I guess, ribbon cutting ceremony, for lack of a better term. It's not really a groundbreaking because the building already exists. They're just kind of doing some work to it. But I got an invite, and I'll be driving up to Orlando on Thursday. So I'll be posting some pictures on Facebook. I'm real interested. They're looking for local people to bring bikes over for a photo shoot of this ribbon cutting. So if you're in the Orlando area, I would say get in contact with me on Facebook or through our website, and I'll check in with the guys there at the Cafe Moto Club to see if they've already got a bunch of bikes to show up for that. But that would be kind of cool. It's Thursday afternoon, next the 30th of April, and I will be there. And I'm kind of excited about that. The Ace, if you haven't heard us talk about it, it's the same people who own the Ace Cafe in London, and it's being opened in the older section of downtown Orlando, which is a really cool section. It's not the International Drive like Disney World type of area. So it's going to have music. It's going to have a restaurant. There's going to be, I believe, a Ducati Triumph dealership in there as well. So we're kind of excited about this. And I think they're shooting for an opening of around October of this year, hopefully to coincide with Oktoberfest in Daytona. And that's also the same time as the AIM Expo is also in October. So, and that's in Orlando as well. You guys hear me talk about that? I've mentioned it a bunch of times, and you know how much I like it. This will be the third year for it. Again, if you're in Florida or you're in the southeastern United States, or you just want to find an event to go to that's kind of cool, check it out. Last year, there was over 500 vendors there. And what's really cool about it is they had demo rides outside as well. And that still really hasn't picked up to the level where I think it should be. I don't think people realize that that was going on. So not only did they have, they had Kawasaki, let me rephrase that. They had Yamaha, Star, Suzuki, EBR, Harley Davidson doing road rides. And then they had a bunch of companies out there doing off-road rides on side-by-sides. So it's really cool. Check out the AIM Expo. Again, I'll have links on the show notes for that. It's the vendors there are much different than IMS. A lot of besides the motorcycle manufacturers there, and then the clothing manufacturers and gear manufacturers, you also have the big distributors like Takaraki. And you also had a lot of manufacturers of OEM parts, which is kind of interesting too. So there was a section there, just like from the Italian manufacturers, but there were people there that made like carburetors and engine parts and things like that. So just to kind of go by the booths and talk with the people there, you got a better idea of how some of these things were manufactured. There was a lot of new products that were there as well. That was pretty neat. You got to demo a lot of cool things, try gear on. They had a lot of events that were going on during the show. But again, AIM Expo, the American International Motorcycle Expo, which is in Orlando at the Orlando Convention Center in October. And I'll post some information about that. And besides that, and with Crash going to get the kid. No, he's back.
Yeah.
I think that's about it. That's all I got right now.
All right. I'm going to assume you said a bunch of stuff because I missed it all.
Actually, I didn't. I just sat here and kind of looked at the screen. And
just dead air, just staring at the screen.
Well, I mean, it really wasn't dead. People could see me if they were watching on the video. So if they watch the video, they can just see me looking at the screen. I'm just kind of like gazing at them like that. Like they want
something, you know? So like just kind of creepy for like
kind of weird.
A few minutes.
This hair I got going here that, you know, yeah, no, I talked a little bit about AIM, and something I didn't tell you is I'll be going to the ribbon cutting ceremony for the Ace Cafe next week.
Oh, cool.
That'll be cool. So I'll send you a bunch of pictures. I'll post pictures, maybe do some interviews. It's got a nice personal invite from Steve Glum from the Ace Cafe, so I'm stoked about that. And I'm hoping to bring a bike up with me too to have for the photos. And that's it, man. You got anything else?
No. I'm hoping maybe, I mean, it's too far out now for me to be able to say for sure, but I'm really hoping to come out to AIM. So
if you do, you know, it's not going to be a problem. You stay here, we'll ride up together, or we'll just meet in Orlando. I'll have a room already. So
yeah,
I could actually bring 2 bikes too. So depending on how the timing is, you know, we might be able to do some rides around the Daytona area. So maybe I'll drag 2 bikes up on the trailer with me. And we can do that. I'm trying to get rid of the Tiger.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't been really serious about having it listed. I did have it listed earlier in the year, like later the end of last year. I had it listed, and I got an offer on it from a guy who really wanted it, and it was just a little less than I wanted to take for it, and I kind of balked at it and turned it down. And now I kind of wish I would have taken it, but I'm gonna relist it again. The bike's like pristine. It's got I think there's like 1,600 miles on it. It just sits in the garage. It's a shame, really. It's just not something I want to keep. You know, the 800 is a great. It's a great motor. It's just not. I don't know. For some reason, I never really got used to it. It never really really clicked with me. You know, and I like the bike, but you know, my wife doesn't really ride it. I don't think she really has the interest to it. I think it's a little too tall for her, and she's a little intimidated by it. But if you guys, anybody out there wants a 2013 800 standard ABS in white, email me. I'll make you a good deal. Anyway, that's it. That's all I got.
All right. Well, if that's the case, then I guess get out there and ride.
Yep. We'll see you guys soon, and I'll post some pictures. Talk to you later.